This is why I train in martial arts.
The martial arts actually helped me after I got hit by a Jeep, but the person wasn't deliberately trying to run me over. I was aware, I felt the wind of the Jeep coming at me, and I was able to move, and not get hit fully by it. There was some injury though, but it enabled me to rehabilitate myself to the point where, other than some pain every once in a while, that I really can't tell that I got hit.
Killed in a deadly SUV attack, allegedly over a man. Today, her accused killer appearing in court. ABC 7's Leah Hope live at 26th in California with new developments we learned today. Leah?
From what I understand, they got into a fight over a guy, and the person that lost the fight tried to run the winner over with a car.
Rob, the judge hearing the evidence presented at today's bond hearing determined that Stapleton was a danger to herself and others, and the judge denied bond. Relatives of Shina Stapleton declined comment as she was not granted a bond to leave jail. Her father tells us that Stapleton was trying to get away from an angry mob Friday night when she ran over Tatiana Lewis. 19-year-old Lewis was killed. Lewis's father is a Chicago police officer. A friend of her father's came to observe the bond court hearing, but did not comment.
It doesn't matter who your parents are. Anybody can be a victim of something like this if they decide to engage in ego fights. That's what I call them. Those are fights where it's not really self-defense. Somebody's coming at you out of the dark alley. You get into some words with somebody, and then you decide to settle it with your fist because of your egos. People can die in ego fights or as a result of ego fights. That's why I think they need to be taken just as seriously in training people as we tend to take, straight up raw, this is self-defense. I want to prevent a crime. I want to prevent an assault. Because people want to escalate things sometimes because it doesn't go their way. And this nonsense happens.
So violence happens, it can happen to anybody at any time.
Damage on a tree remains from the violent incident that played out after what allegedly began with taunts on social media. The prosecutor alleges Stapleton and Lewis quarreled over a man. The two agreed to meet for a fight and did. As Lewis and her friends were leaving the planned altercation at 114th and May, the prosecutor told the judge that Stapleton drove the wrong way on a one-way street onto a sidewalk, pinning Lewis against a tree and ran over her twice.
Does anybody talk about the possibility of being run over by a car with their students? If you don't, you should. Because apparently it can happen. They're out there engaging in ego fights and hanging around with the wrong crowd.
Witnesses then watched as China Stapleton put her car in reverse and pulled away from the tree. The victim had become lodged in the car and was dragged and then pulled under the vehicle. China Stapleton then stopped her car, shifted to drive, and then ran over Tatiana Lewis with both the front and rear tires of her car.
That's just another example of just senseless violence in this city. We shouldn't have it, but we do. And my thoughts and prayers go out to that officer and his family, because nobody should have to go through something like that.
As the prosecutor described details of this scene on Friday night, he told the judge that apparently Lewis was trying to run from the vehicle and tripped, and that's when she was hit.
That's why no matter how tough you are or how tough you think you are, sometimes the only thing that's going to protect you are choices that you make in advance. Because I don't know of any technique that's going to stop a car. The best I could tell you to do is if a car is coming and it catches you unexpectedly, try to be as relaxed as possible, to try not to oppose the force. If you don't think you can get out of the way, you're going to have to just relax and go with the force. Maybe roll up over the hood. Or if you see it coming, get out of the way. That's it. And I think this young lady actually tried to get out of the way, but she tripped and fell. That could happen to anybody. There was one guy I remember way back in the day. He said that when I was in high school, somebody had tried to run him over. He jumped up, hit the front of the hood with the sitting stance, and then brake fall rolled over the car and came down. It was just adrenaline and youth in his case, and he was already a black belt at like 16 or 17. So he had youth and training and some luck on his hands, and that's the only reason why he survived unscathed, believe it or not. So, people, I hope that martial artists know that they're invulnerable, that they're not invincible, that they are vulnerable because they are human. Maybe that's a good takeaway with training, is that you realize that you're not invulnerable, that you're human, because you're reminded by that by being thrown around or being kicked and punched on at least a weekly or semi-weekly basis. Some of you other people out there, you think you're tough. You think that I'm soft because I don't want you getting in ego fights. You think that makes me not real. Do you think you're real enough to handle steel? And not just a steel of a gun, but steel of a car. Do you think that you can survive something like that? You must think you're Superman or Superwoman. You're not. Stop these ego fights, people, please. So that nobody else has to die like this. So that nobody else has to lose their child, their sister, their brother, their mother, their father like this. Their loved one like this. This was a senseless ego fight, man. It's got to stop.
One other thing to note, there was a 13-year-old in the car when this incident took place. We are told that Stapleton has 3 children, but the 13-year-old who was uninjured was not one of her children.
So what do you think that's going to do to that 13-year-old that saw that woman get ran over? Yep, traumatizer for life. Do we care? Why would somebody bring a 13-year-old or something like that in the first place? I guess that makes me soft because I don't think 13-year-olds should see people murdered, right? Come on, people, we got to do better than that. And you 13-year-olds, stop running all around with these people that you think are cool and exciting because you think that sitting at home and actually listening to what your mother tells you to do is boring. Your mother and father are only trying to keep you alive and untraumatized so you don't end up needing therapy because you saw somebody get ran over by a Jeep. Peace.